Happy 2026 and welcome to our first video of the new year. As anyone who has watched my videos knows, Eye of the Beholder reviews Dungeons & Dragons miniatures created by WOTC and WizKids for a 20-year time span between 2003 through 2023. With this video, we pick up with reviewing giant kin minis, starting with Ogres. As an OG beastie from the first monster manual, Ogres are the perfect adversary for almost every party level. At low level, a single ogre is quite scary and dangerous, but beatable by a well-organized party. Mid-level parties can be challenged by a multiple ogre encounter, especially from ambush, while PCs of high levels often encounter them as minions to the big bad they are actually trying to defeat, with the ogres softening them up prior to the climatic battle. Your standard ogre is as strong as an ox, greedy as a miser, and as dumb as a box of rocks. They do prefer to attack in numbers and from ambush with crude weapons.
So of course, we get an ogre in the inaugural Harbinger set of 2003. Posed in profile, we get a clear look at his elongated face with the standard lowered tusks clearly visible. Using a tree trunk for a club, I can't help but notice that he looks like he's standing in the batter's box, staring down a pitcher. Brown is the color of choice here, with a pop of white for the skull codpiece and beads in his hair. Batter up. Score: Paint 12, Pose 13, Playability 11, Pizzazz 12, for a score of 48. Two sets, two ogres. From 2003's Dragon Eye set, we get this Ogre Ravager. No crude club for him, he wields a very fine-looking battle axe. Shorter than the previous mini, but with the same long face and color palette, this mini is posed in a slightly crouched position, making him look smaller than he actually is. Pose indicates he could be hiding in an ambush or about to spring forward to attack. Score: Paint 12, Pose 13, Playability 13, Pizzazz 12, for a score of 50. Two years go by before we get our next ogre, this Skull Crusher ogre from 2005's Death Knell set. And based on the massive spiked mace, the Skull Crusher name is well earned. This is also our first armored ogre, with bits of plate covering the torso, along with a spiked shield that matches the mace. Interestingly, our ogres keep getting smaller, with this one even shorter than the Dragon Eye version. Based on the armor, I imagine these ogres are guards and minions for a more powerful entity. Score: Paint 13, Pose 14, Playability 15, Pizzazz 14, for a score of 56. Next up is this Ogre Warhulk from 2006's War Drum set. First off, I really like its choice of weapon, a two-handed triple flail made of chain with nasty-looking spike mace heads at the tips. As one would expect from his name, it is posed charging forward while screaming out its war cry from a wide-open maw. He is also armored, with a finely detailed chainmail tunic that reaches his knees. Brown body and black hair complete the look. Score: Paint 14, Pose 17, Playability 17, Pizzazz 15, for a score of 65. Also from 2006, this Ogre Skirmisher from the War of the Dragon Queen set is pretty cool. The one ranged weapon that ogres are known to use is the javelin, so it's nice to get a mini wielding one. Posed slightly leaning forward and about to loose his javelin at a foe, he has a wooden club in his hand to follow up said throw. However, close examination shows that this ogre may be female. Note the leather top covering her chest area, also the blue-gray hair color, different from other ogres. Finally, I like that this is an uncommon, making it easy to get several to use as the opening salvo in an ogre ambush. Score: Paint 15, Pose 17, Playability 17, Pizzazz 17, for a score of 69. A year later, we get this unusual ogre in the unhallowed set of 2007. Called an Ogre Executioner, its tawny body is heavily muscled, nicely revealed by a generous dark wash. Clad only in a chainmail loincloth, plus black bracers, foot wrappings, and of course, an executioner's hood. Let's see, what else can we talk about here? Oh yeah, the gigantic meat cleaver it holds in both hands. The inward curved blade is perfect for beheading, and I laughed at the standard round hole that regular cleavers have that allow for easy kitchen hanging. Not particularly playable, but freaking cool, so score is Paint 16, Pose 17, Playability 8, Pizzazz 23, for a score of 64. Later in 2007, we get this Ogre Brute miniature from the Desert of Desolation set. Wielding a warhammer that appears to be intricately carved from a mammoth's tusk, note the skull visage at the end. Pose slightly leaning backward as it prepares a mighty swing of its weapon, grinning maniacally at the carnage it is about to inflict. Its brown tunic is offset by a strap bit of shielding over its stomach. Matching brown leggings, grayish skin, and black hair complete the color palette. Score: Paint 13, Pose 14, Playability 12, Pizzazz 11, for a score of 50. (2008) gives us our next miniature, the Ogre Pulverizer from the Demon Web set. Pose squarely facing its foe, legs slightly bent and arms to the side. Its brown, well-muscled body is covered by a slightly less brown tunic, and he is armed with a huge black tree branch. Of all of our Ogre minis, this one has the best facial features so far. Long face with lower fangs protruding from the jaw and pointy ears clearly visible. The pose also makes it appear larger than its predecessors, enhancing playability. Score: Paint 14, Pose 18, Playability 21, Pizzazz 17, for a score of 70. Also from the Demon Web set, our parade of Ogre miniatures from WOTC ends with this brutal Warhulk mini. While his brother from the set has a somewhat passive pose in comparison, this guy is in full-on attack mode, charging forward, body turned to profile to limit exposure, arms trailing behind as it brings a very cool-looking morning star to bear. The amount of detail in here is impressive. The cream-colored leather, the brass plating on the shoulders, and the curve of the chain attaching the spiked ball to the handle. And did you notice the elbows? They are pierced with gold hoops. How badass is that? WOTC saves the best for last. Score 100. We get our first WizKids Ogres in their second set, 2015's Elemental Evil. Eschewing the tawny brown skin for a paler, fleshier hide, this is the tallest Ogre mini, especially with the gigantic, double-bladed battle axe he casually holds over his head in one hand. Clad in naught but a brown loincloth, bracers, and foot wrappings, he strides forward confidently, fists clenched and a battle cry on his lips. Nice touch of the 4 skulls hanging from his loincloth. Score: Paint 13, Pose 24, Playability 20, Pizzazz 22, for a score of 79. Our next 2 Ogres come from 2018's Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica set, and apparently, Ogres are smaller in Ravnica. This first, from the Gruul clan, is naturally enough the Gruul Ogre. Its relatively small stature is exacerbated by the forward crouch as he leans into battle, ready to bring his spiked club to bear. His gray-green body appears to be scarified. Note the runes on his arms and back. Outside of the metal bracer in his left hand, he charges into battle unarmored. Score: Paint 11, Pose 13, Playability 7, Pizzazz 10, for a score of 41. How insanely cool is this miniature? Called a Rakdos Ogre, its clan name, this guy is a whirling dervish of chains that appear to be magically grafted to his lower back and arms. And on the off chance that an enemy gets inside the swirling chaos, he is armed with a pair of spiked knuckle dusters on each hand. Finally, he is armored with spiked pauldrons protecting his shoulders and a white death mask covering his face. Posed with chest proudly thrust out, daring anyone to get close enough to strike him, I'm still not convinced on playability, but coolness is off the charts. Score: Paint 16, Pose 21, Playability 9, Pizzazz 25, for a score of 71. WizKids purchase for variants strikes again in 2019's Volo and Mordenkainen's Foes set. But at least we get different names instead of calling them A and B. One is called an Ogre battering ram, and the second is called an Ogre bolt launcher. Guess which is which? Color palette is appropriately ogreish: tan skin, brown loincloth and bracers, and white foot wrappings. I do like the facial features on both, though, as well as the necklaces they wear. Score: Paint 15, Pose 18, Playability 17, Pizzazz 15, for a score of 65. Our next Ogre miniature is this whimsical fellow from 2023's Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen set. Called a Dragon Army Ogre, this guy is obviously enjoying a leave of absence, spiked club strapped to his back while he carries a barrel of fish under his left arm while munching on a fish snack as he strolls through the marketplace. He wears a long red robe, open to show off his impressive belly. A chainmail loincloth and brown bracers and foot wrappings complete the look. I could see using this mini as an NPC encounter in an ogre-tolerant city. Score: Paint 17, Pose 19, Playability 10, Pizzazz 16, for a score of 61. Yes, this is an ogre. When a powerful green hag starts messing around with transmutation spells, this is what you get. Called crab folk, they are relatively peaceful, all things considered, living in small clutches on the coast. This mini, from 2023's Seas and Shores set, is a basic representation of these beasties. Red carapace with cream-colored underbodies. Its large pincers are set forward on the body, not necessarily offensive, but definitely ready. Score: Paint 14, Pose 14, Playability 11, Pizzazz 16, for a score of 55.
Half ogres are the offspring of a human and an ogre. I don't know how that would work, and I don't want to. Stronger than humans and smarter than ogres, they are looked down upon in human civilization, but ogres accept them as is, and they are often leaders of ogre communities.
WOTC gives us their one and only half ogre in 2005's Underdark set. Called a half ogre barbarian, he definitely looks the part. Brown skirt and leggings under a chainmail breastplate worn against his bare chest. Facial features are not as elongated as your typical ogre, emphasizing his human heritage despite the pointed ears and small tusks. Posed with a two-handed sword set way behind his head, he is about to cleave something in two. Score: Paint 13, Pose 15, Playability 16, Pizzazz 15, for a score of 59. Like WOTC, WizKids gives us only one half ogre, albeit with two variations. From 2020's Eberron Rising from the Last War, we get these two minis. As usual, they are identical, and I mean identical, there's not even a palette change, with the usual exception of weaponry, axe for one and spear for the other. Brown boots, trousers, and bracers, along with a red vest and sash, make up the clothing. Note the small barrel, tankard, tied to the sash. Posed in ready position, weapons up and eyes locked forward. Score: Paint 14, Pose 14, Playability 16, Pizzazz 14, for a score of 58.
Not all ogres are dumb brutes. Ogre mages, known as Oni, are based on Japanese mythology and are powerful and cunning creatures capable of fighting with sword or spell equally well. They greatly covet magic in all forms and are willing to trade for spells or magical items. Of course, if they see the chance, they'll just as soon take what they want over your dead body. Oh yeah, they regenerate too, cause spellcasting battle tanks just aren't tough enough.
We get our first Ogre Mage in 2005's Angel Fire set, and this one definitely leans into the Japanese look, with the gi-like pale white trousers, belt-like sash, and of course the katana strapped to his back. His dark blue body, well muscled by the way, makes an excellent contrast to the white horns and lower tusks, and would it be wrong to point out the shape of the eyes? Posed either in mid-spellcast or about to engage in hand-to-hand combat, solid start. Score: Paint 19, Pose 21, Playability 18, Pizzazz 23, for a score of 81. Three years later, we get this Oni miniature in the Dungeons of Dread set of 2008. Now, this guy is definitely leaning into the Bushido side of his nature. This very jacked big boy holds a two-handed sword up and ready. I really like how the sword is pitted and nicked from previous battles. A slightly lighter blue than the previous mini, but I really like the facial detailing on this one, with the downturned mouth, very prominent tusks, squinty eyes, and arched eyebrows. Score: Paint 19, Pose 24, Playability 18, Pizzazz 25, for a score of 85. Two years later, we get WOTC's final Oni in 2010's Lords of Madness set. Called an Oni Night Hunter, despite the very cool name, this mini is a step backwards from the previous two. Dark skin versus blue, gaunt versus muscular, white hair versus black, great detailing versus I do like how the ragged yellow trousers contrast with the dark skin though. Striding forward with spiked mace raised high, based on the name, Night Encounters maybe? Score: Paint 14, Pose 13, Playability 13, Pizzazz 13, for a score of 53. WizKids drops their only Ogre Mage in their first set, 2014's Tyranny of Dragons. Most certainly inspired by the book art with the tattered brown cloak and hood, blue trousers that exactly match the skin color, a little contrast would have been nice, and white for hair and fangs. Posed crouched in a ready position with arms out and palms upturned. I just noticed the black claws. Personally, I prefer either of the first two WOTC versions. Score: Paint 12, Pose 14, Playability 15, Pizzazz 13, for a score of 54.
And with that, we're done with ogres, leaving the weekend free for football. We'll be finishing up with the last of our giant kin with our next video when we review those lovable bridge dwellers, the trolls. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch Eye of the Beholder. Please like or subscribe if you like what you see, or even go crazy and leave a comment. See you next time.